Yeah, y'all ever try to play D&D with a group of 6 adults? It's a nightmare for me, Mackenna Goodrich specifically, who was like, okay, we just need to meet once a month because I was running this like Bridgerton themed campaign.
I want in.
Well, we can do it again and I was literally like, we have to meet once a month, and we met, I think, 3 times maybe, and then we never could schedule it. And I was like, and every once in a while one of them will still ask about it, and I'm like, guys, I cannot be in charge of this, but I still have the notes and everything for it, so I could always run it with different people.
This is where you and I think, are the same type of person, because you and I are the type of people where when we say, all right, once a week, we're going to take out a couple hours and that's podcasting time, and we just do it. We just make it happen. Could I easily be using this time to do my actual job? Probably. This is why, like, I was flirting with some of those jobs on the Therapist and Tech Slack channel, but then I actually thought about it for a minute, and I was like, yes, I could make $80,000 a year doing a job that is probably easier than what I'm doing right now. However, it would require me to move and be in person every day, and that's just not my kind of lifestyle.
Yeah, I similarly was going to apply to a digital producer job that was like $95,000 a year, but it was in LA. And I was like, I don't want to move to LA. I want to live in my tiny, tiny baby boy apartment in New York City and work a little bit and make the podcast and do theater and continue to have my Google Calendar look like an absolute kitchen nightmare.
Oh, that'll be our next spinoff. Gordon Ramsay is not on the Food Network, so he was not a subject of today's discussion. Although Gordon Ramsay, he is hot. He's objectively hot. On that note, welcome to Informed Attraction, a podcast hosted by 1 pint of donkey sauce and 1 ticket to Flavortown, a podcast about how sometimes real heroes have frosted tips.
Aubrey, which one are you calling me? Which one are you calling me?
I mean, which of us has some sort of tips at the moment?
Tips?
You got little colorful tips.
No. I'm talking, you just said that this is hosted by 1 pint of donkey sauce and 1 ticket to Flavortown. Which one are you calling donkey sauce?
I mean, I think I got that sauce.
Okay, well, thank God. Okay, then we're all happy. You wanted to be donkey sauce. I was mortally offended by you calling me donkey sauce. No. I would love to be a ticket to Flavortown.
You are a ticket to Look at you. You're a one-way ticket to Flavortown.
Right now, just what I look like is a little mole who can barely see because I'm so puffy in the face and my eyeballs are barely open, and I have on a Kenyan college swimming t-shirt, and I look like a little mole crawling out of his hole going, "The sun! The sun!"
I gotta look up what donkey sauce actually consists of.
What's unfortunate is that when you first said donkey sauce, I was like, donkey party, and then I was like, wait.
Let's see. I'm assuming, like every secret sauce, it's a variation of Thousand Island.
Oh,
but
I'm thinking about cane sauce.
I have to think about In-N-Out.
I've never had the In-N-Out spread.
You've never had it? Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Are you watching porn on accident?
No. Oh my god. What the fuck? Oh my god. I tried to click on a fucking website to get the Guy Fieri's donkey sauce, and it was one of those loud pop-ups that went full screen on my computer and was like, your information has been used for fucking private security breach, and it was just loud beeping. It was just going beep, beep, beep. Your information has been used. Beep, beep, beep. Get the fuck out of here. Beep, beep, beep. And I'm like, oh my god, what do I do? And there was no exit button, and so I had to hold the escape button to exit full screen to be able to close the tab. That was crazy. Okay, so now
I couldn't hear any of that, and so I was like, what's happening? I was so scared because I didn't know what was happening on your end of the world.
Okay, yeah, that was insane. I was in the trenches for a second.
Aubrey was in a foxhole being doused in donkey sauce.
That I had to go through hell to find out what donkey sauce was. All right, I went to the Food Network website, probably a little bit of a safer choice. Don't know why I didn't go there first, but It is 2 heads of garlic, kosher salt, freshly ground pepper, 1 cup of mayonnaise, a teaspoon of yellow mustard, 4 dashes of Worcestershire sauce, and
Worcestershire.
Worcestershire? Worcestershire. And extra virgin olive oil for drizzling.
Because he likes them extra virginal.
Oh, God. So it's really just a garlic aioli with like a little bit of mustard and a little bit of meaty sauce.
Okay. I went to Kenyon College in Gambier, Ohio, where Tommy Vitor, host of a podcast, much like ours, Pod Save America, the exact same thing as this podcast, actually. Yeah. He went there too. So did John Green. I don't know why I'm just like naming alumni of my college. Alice and Janney, Paul Newman salad dressing. There's like 2 restaurants in Gambier, Ohio. One is called the Village Inn, but not the Village Inn chain. And they had a garlic aioli at the Village Inn that like I still dream about. Like sometimes in my dreams, I'm 19 years old again, an age that I never want to be again. I hated being 19, but I'm in this nightmare. I'm 19. And then what makes it from a nightmare to a dream is I have tater tots and the garlic aioli from the Village Inn in Gambier, Ohio. Also, they did spinach and artichoke dip, and the pita that they gave you was puffy. It was like big fat puffy pita, and I'm going to my college reunion, probably before this episode is released. I think I don't want to talk to anyone. I just want to go to the VI and eat dips.
You should.
Yeah.
That sounds delicious.
I'm going to newly a bunch of dresses so that I look so... This is a great thing for me to say in my current state. I want to look so beautiful that men cry.
You will. I've seen you in beautiful dresses. I've seen you at my wedding. Upstaged me at my own wedding. Ate me up.
Whoa. Don't we can't spread that rumor on the internet?
You know what? We got the pics. We'll let the audience decide who got eaten up at my wedding.
It was me. It was your wedding.
So in the previous episode, we talked about the origins of the Food Network, a lot about its metrosexual appeal. Metrosexuality, by the way, is a concept that we'll explore in a future episode.
It's in the list.
It's on the list. We do have a list. Today we're going to talk about where the Food Network went after losing one of its most profitable talents, and the search for identity that ended up being filled by Flavortown's own mayor, Guy Fieri. I think that Guy is a really interesting figure in how he broke the mold of the network and ended up essentially becoming its mascot. I think that the
Aubrey.
Yeah.
Which one of us is the mascot for this podcast?
We both are. We're both on the little icon.
I don't like sharing the spotlight. Okay.
We're 2 little guys. I think the shift towards Guy Fieri ultimately has shaped the network in ways that I consider positive, and he himself is someone who's become endeared to the hearts of many as a Mr. Rogers type of symbol, mainly due to the amount of money he's contributed to charities, the food industry, and honestly been a pretty outspoken champion for queer rights. I think he's interesting to talk about in a podcast about what the media tells you is attractive because, he's not unattractive by any means, but the styling and attitude that he embodies really make him into more of a lovable character than an object of sexual appeal. However, there are definitely people who want to fuck Guy Fieri. Weirdly, I think a lot of grandmas want to fuck Guy Fieri. I don't really know.
He's the bad boy equivalent. Like the way that I want to fuck dudes with tattoos who are scary to me. Like the scariest tattooed motorcycle riding man that a boomer grandma can imagine is Guy Fieri.
And he's just so soft. He's so
To put it in your own words, to not me, but to a 75-year-old woman, there's an allure.
There is an allure.
He's a bad boy, and he's rolling into Flavortown to see all of the diners, drive-ins, and dines, and to steal your girl, as long as your girl is geriatric.
My husband always gets so mad when we watch DDD because he never goes to drive-ins, and I'm like, he doesn't. Josh's whole thing is he hates that it's called diners, drive-ins, and dives because he only goes to diners.
But also the place that he went to in Arizona, he went to Joe's Farm Grill in Arizona, and that's none of those things.
Joe's Farm Grill also isn't that good.
Oh, I love Joe's Farm Grill.
That's like my in-laws' spot. Like if there's a family breakfast, they always go to Joe's Farm Grill. little mid to me. I think it used to be a lot better, but I think in recent
That's
years...
fair. I have not been there in many years.
It used to be really good. I think in recent years, especially post-COVID, it's kind of dipped in quality, in my opinion.
So for anyone who lives in the Phoenix metropolitan area, that segment of the podcast was for you and you only. Everyone else, fuck you.
I've got some hot takes about food in the Valley that I think would make people mad.
Oh, I meant to say this earlier also. Also, Aubrey loves all of Guy Fieri's politics, is what she's saying. She loves everything that he's ever said politically. She loves all of it.
Yeah, we're definitely not gonna say that. I think Guy Fieri has been really positive in the amount that he's contributed to charity. He's done a lot of really nice things for folks who work in the food industry. That being said, I don't think he's really outspoken on politics. I do not know his voting history. I know there was some controversy where he went to some MMA event that Donald Trump was at and he shook Donald Trump's hand. I think that upset people justifiably. I also think that if I was in a situation where, I don't know, you know what? I was going to say, if I was in a situation like that, I don't know what I would do. And honestly, I think the answer would be I would just start throwing hands. I'd just start throwing hands until I didn't see a face and it was just liquid. That's what would happen if it was me.
He also, in addition to that thing, he earlier this year, went on Fox and Friends and has sort of just aligned himself, not explicitly with the MAGA movement, but adjacent to it. He's made lots of we're gonna get back to being a great country kind of comments, but we're not here to talk about politics. That's what my friend and colleague Tommy Vitor's podcast Pod Save America is for. We're here to talk about 75-year-old grandmas who want to lick his frosted tips.
Yeah. When we go on Pod Save America, we'll talk more about the podcast.
We'll go on. Us on Pod Save America would be so scary.
Us on Pod Save America talking about Guy Fieri's politics. Watch out. Coming to you fall of 2025. I'm manifesting.
Huge dreams for us very quickly.
We got 13 followers on Instagram. I really think we're making it.
Oh, Fox News wants to show me notifications? No, thank you. Blocked.
So as I said in the last episode, what I think sets the Food Network apart from other networks is that its talent does have to have some professional success in the culinary field, which means that they aren't just random hot people. I think even the hottest of the hot people on Food Network, Manit, also known enemy to me, Giada De Laurentiis, Giada De Laurentiis, I think, is probably the most conventionally attractive woman on the Food Network. And even then, and I'm not saying this as any kind of dig at Giada, I think that she's hot in the way algebra teachers can be really hot sometimes. I don't think that she's someone who mainstream Hollywood would necessarily pick up and prop as this is the new hot lady.
What does Giada look like? I gotta look at her face again. Nah, Giada's really hot. Giada could very easily be a host of an E show or also be a Real Housewife, and it would make perfect sense.
Okay, you know what? I think
she's
that's
reality
fair.
TV hot, perhaps. Also, you didn't like her Taco Bell collab?
She had a Taco Bell collab?
You don't know about the Giada Taco Bell collab?
No, I know all of the horrible clips of Giada that have just enshrined my hatred of her.
Okay, hold on.
Part of my beef with Giada is that my first boyfriend's celebrity crush was Giada, and you know who his mom looked exactly like?
What?
Giada.
Oh, there is no Giada Taco Bell collab. I implanted a memory into my own brain.
Well,
who had the taco? No, there was some celebrity chef who did a Taco Bell collab and was bringing us back to our roots. Oh, who was it? Celebrity chef Taco Bell collab.
I think I know who you're talking about. Is it?
Oh, Lorena Garcia.
Yeah.
It was Lorena Garcia, not Giada.
Yeah, because she started doing the shredded chicken Taco Bell stuff, and it's way overpriced. It tastes good, but it's not you're not changing things.
It also makes more sense for it to be a Venezuelan woman doing the Taco Bell collab and not the Italian Giada De Laurentiis. So
I will say I do really want to go to Giada's restaurant in Vegas because it looks really good and the portions are really big.
Oh, so you love Giada?
I love Italian food.
You love her and you want to kiss her. You love her and you want to kiss her.
I would kiss her, to be honest.
Boom! Got him! Put it down! Get in the notes! Get in the comments! Aubrey's a liar. She said
I don't think she would kiss me. I think that when I look at her, I see a woman who's never doubted her sexuality.
Okay.
So I really appreciate media that showcases people for talents beyond just fitting the mold of conventional attractiveness. That said, the Food Network is not a perfect entity, and it warrants criticisms, which we're going to get into. So, where we last left off, I was talking about the rise of Paula Deen, and now I'm going to bring us to June 2013. Interestingly, this is when Guy's Grocery Games premieres. The Food Network announced that they were not renewing Deen's contract due to publicity about her racial remarks revealed in a lawsuit brought on by a former worker. I'm going to get into the lawsuit and the incredibly valid and very justified criticisms of Paula Deen next, but I do want to point out that she was the subject of a lot of, frankly, kind of fat-phobic criticism, and basically, Paula Deen was someone who the joke around her before all of this came out was that she loved butter, and her recipes used a lot of butter and sugar. People criticized her heavily for this. She came out with one cookbook, which was Cookbook for the Lunchbox, and it was aimed at children, and it was criticized by Barbara Walters, who said of the book, "You tell kids to have cheesecake for breakfast. You tell them to have chocolate cake and meatloaf for lunch, and french fries. Doesn't it bother you that you're adding to all of this?" This being the quote-unquote childhood obesity epidemic. Deen replied, "All things in moderation." Celebrity chef Anthony Bourdain commented in 2011 that he would, quote, "think twice before telling an already obese nation that it's okay to eat food that is killing us."
Anthony Bourdain is a really interesting figure.
I think Anthony Bourdain is an incredibly interesting figure. I am more sympathetic to him than I am unsympathetic to him. However, I do think that, unfortunately, the thing that happened after his death that happens to a lot of people is that he gets sort of sanctified, and people are like, oh, he never had any bad or problematic takes. He did, I think, especially around stuff like food and fat people, which is unfortunate. So yeah, that I just wanted to...
Have you read his book?
I have not read it. You've told me about his book.
Yeah, I read his book, Kitchen Confidential. I read Kitchen Confidential around the same time I was reading a lot of, like, memoirs by male celebrities. And his of the bunch was, like, for sure, like, the least, like, to me. But, you know, it is still a lot of, like, I was doing a lot of drugs and cheating on my wife. And it's like, yep, all of you did that, actually. But I do genuinely think that he, like, made some real changes in the back half of his life. And obviously died away the tragic death, so...
Yeah.
Paula Deen.
Yeah, so Paula Deen, bad in many ways. I do want to say, I think that what is probably not bad about her is that she used a lot of butter in her recipes. She made a lot of Southern comfort type of food. I think it's unfair to suggest that Paula Deen was responsible for the quote-unquote childhood obesity epidemic, and it's weird that she was sort of positioned as someone who was, like, personally responsible for fat people in America.
Also, if Aubrey criticizes a fat person on the internet, people will get in her Instagram comments and be like, hey, hypocrite, hypocrite.
If I'm held at gunpoint listening to Lizzo being like, this is the fucking greatest music I've ever heard in my goddamn life. So to get into the allegations with Paula Deen, in June 2013, Deen was sued by former employee Lisa Jackson for racial and sexual discrimination. I want to say at the forefront that Lisa Jackson is a white woman. She sued both Paula Deen and her brother Earl Bubba Hears.
Of course his name is Bubba.
Yeah. The lawsuit accused Deen and Hears of racial harassment and contends that Hears viewed pornography in the workplace. This is that latter half I could find basically no information on because everyone capitalized on Paula Deen, not so much on her brother. But yeah, that said, very fucked up, and I don't doubt at all that he was probably doing some really bad sexual misconduct in the workplace.
Yeah.
So Lisa Jackson said that Deen made derogatory remarks about Black people. She also said that Deen mused about wedding plans for her brother that would have a, quote, true Southern plantation-style theme with black male servers, but rejected the plans because the media would be on me about that. In August...
And it's like a bad thing to do. And it's like a bad thing to do, but that they didn't care about that.
No, they didn't care that it was bad. They just cared that it would have bad optics.
I know someone who got married on a plantation pretty recently and posted about it on her Instagram, and a lot of people were like, hey, so that's kind of weird. And she was like, no, it's not. And we were all like, okay.
Yeah, I couldn't be me. Couldn't be me is all I'm going to say on that. In early August 2013, Judge William Moore threw out the suit's race discrimination claims, ruling that Jackson, who is white, had no standing to sue over what the plaintiff said was poor treatment of black workers. However, the judge did let her claims of sexual discrimination stand. Roughly 2 weeks later, lawyers reached a dismissal deal to drop the lawsuit, prompting some to surmise that a settlement had been reached out of court, although details of the dismissal have not been made public. The suit in and of itself originally didn't have very much fanfare around it. However, it was Paula Deen's deposition that created a big firestorm with the press. Basically, in her deposition, she was asked if she had ever used the N-word, and she said, of course, and that she had used it many times in the past.
Of course, it's so crazy. Oh my God. It'd be like, well, obviously I am saying slurs. I love to say slurs. I say them all the time.
Yeah, specifically, she recalled telling her husband about an incident when a black man burst into the bank that I was working in and put a gun to my head. I didn't feel real favorable towards him. She was asked if she had used the word since then, and she said, quote, I'm sure I have, but it's been a very long time. Maybe in repeating something that was said to me, probably a conversation between blacks. I don't know, but that's just not a word we use as time has gone on. Things have changed since the 60s in the South. So...
Sweet.
Yeah.
Clear of all charges.
Reminds me a bit of Papa John of this whole, I just say it to say how I don't say it. Only Paula Deen was like, I used to say it. I don't really say it.
I obviously used to say it. Of course I used to say it.
Of course I've said it. Who hasn't? And, you know, like, admittedly, she was a white woman in the South in, like, growing up in the 50s and 60s. I think that it makes sense that she would have used that language at some point, but I think that what the deposition makes really clear is that she has, I don't know, basically no real sadness or reflection about saying it.
No self-awareness.
Right. Because, like, if she had said something like, yes, when I was younger, I had said it, it was a word that was used around me, I since realized how harmful that was, and I don't say that word anymore, I think we would still see a world where Paula Deen is on the Food Network.
Right. Well, but it was definitely like the lol, I don't know the last time I've said it, who cares? Like, that attitude is definitely what made people be like, yikes, so it's recently.
Right. And it's like, it's been a long time, but, I probably have said it.
Weeks.
Like,
days Deen. Even.
No. So basically, Paula Deen not getting her contract renewed was sort of a big deal because at the time, the channel's biggest crossover stars were Rachel Ray and Paula Deen because they both had a huge cable following and transitioned them into syndicated talk shows. They had merchandise lines of cookware, food products, pet lines. This is also important context at this time in 2013 because Rachel Ray never officially left the Food Network, but her main TV show on the Food Network, 30-Minute Meals, ended in 2012, so this is around the time of the Paula Deen scandal, and Rachel Ray went to focus on her talk show, which was owned by the Scripps Network, which we talked about in the last episode, which was the parent company that sort of controlled Food Network. So basically, Rachel Ray and Paula Deen, who are the cash cows of the network, are essentially transitioned out of things that are on the network.
They're losing all their women. Their binders full of women.
Their binders full of women are just empty.
Yeah.
So this creates a bit of a power vacuum, and that vacuum is basically filled by Guy Fieri. So
Can you imagine a world in which instead of it being filled by Guy Fieri, we just saw like the meteoric rise of Ina Garten instead?
I mean, that's the thing, is that Ina was already huge, and she still is huge, but she doesn't have, I think, the cross-gender appeal. Which doesn't make sense to me, because I put Barefoot Contessa on for my husband like it was Coco Melon, and he was... and he was locked in.
Barefoot Contessa is your home's baby sensory videos.
Yes. We put on Contessa, and we are just along for the ride.
Hell yeah.
So basically, who is Guy Fieri? So beginning in 2005, the Food Network produced an annual reality contest called the Next Food Network Star, where it brought competitors to New York City to compete for their own show on the channel. Previous winners include Dan Smith and Steve McDonough, who created Party Line with the Hardy Boys, Guy Fieri, who won season 2.
I don't think I realized he won the Next Food Network Star.
That was how he got his start.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he won season 2 of Food Network Star, and basically the premise of Food Network Star is that everyone is competing to get a show on the Food Network, and those lead out shows for many of the competitors have become very successful.
Yeah.
Guy Fieri being probably the most successful of all of them. So like
he's the Kelly Clarkson of the Next Food Network Star.
Basically, in Next Food Network Star, I think has always tried to find someone who will be the next Guy Fieri, and they just never have. You know, I think like Artie Sequeira I really like, but she is mainly a judge on Guy Fieri competition shows. Her own show I don't think was super successful, but I do really like her personality. But yeah, that's what's interesting. When you look up the winners of Food Network Star, most of them honestly have just kind of transitioned to being judges on Guy Fieri's shows.
I was looking at the other winners of the Next Food Network Star to see if I recognize any of them, and I don't.
Yeah, exactly. Most of them have a show that lasts for a season, and then they just become judge fodder for Guy's grocery games. So, Guy Ramsey Fieri, his birth name is Ferry, and is pronounced Fairy.
Wait, his middle name is Ramsey?
It is.
Okay, have we ever seen Guy Fieri and Gordon Ramsay in the same room together?
Oh my god, me and Josh were just talking about that the other day. Apparently they did do some special where they were together.
/ is it an Arnold Schwarzenegger, Danny DeVito twins situation?
I think it very well could be.
Oh, hell yeah.
So Guy Fieri is an American restaurateur, author, and Emmy Award-winning television presenter. He co-owned many restaurants.
What the fuck did he win an Emmy for?
He's been nominated for several Emmys with Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives.
So Guy Fieri has won one Daytime Emmy Award in 2013 for Guy Fieri's Family Reunion.
Oh, okay.
And then he's been nominated for 5 Primetime Emmy Awards, all for Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. And then he's also been nominated for 5 other Daytime Emmy Awards.
Good for him.
Sure.
Guy Fieri has owned several restaurants, which I think are mostly defunct. We'll get into some of his restaurants in a little bit. He does license his name to restaurants in cities all over the world, and one of them is in downtown Louisville, Kentucky. My parents think that it's his restaurant. It's not his restaurant. He just uses his name.
Wait, did you guys go?
They went. I did not. And like all of the Guy Fieri...
Did it commit and go to get us a review for the podcast?
No. I'll tell you what, if somebody wants to pay me to go, we'll do a bonus episode where I go and do a podcast live in the Guy Fieri restaurant in downtown Louisville.
And I'll do that for Chris Santos' restaurant here in New York, Beauty and Essex, a way more expensive restaurant than that restaurant.
That's depressing. So in 2010, the New York Times has this article where they say that Guy Fieri has become the face of the network. They say that he brings an element of rowdy, mass market culture to American food television, and that his primetime shows attract more male viewers than any others on the network. I keep setting his come up as a little later than this, but I really do think that it's the fall of Paula Deen and Rachel Regg's exit that creates a gap in the Food Network that really propels him to being number one on the network. Because
it's a power vacuum.
It's a power vacuum that gets created, right? Because you have these shows that are really popular with women during the workday, like the Paula Deen shows, the Rachel Ray shows, and then those basically go away.
Yeah.
And then the network doesn't really have anyone to hone in on. And then Guy Fieri, who is popular, basically becomes the monopoly of the Food Network. And I really think it's remained that way for over a decade now.
I was going to say it's a power vacuum that can only be filled by donkey sauce.
Oh, that's so much better.
Thanks.
So
I'm the funny one on the podcast.
You are. So Guy Fieri was born January 22nd, 1968 in Columbus, Ohio.
Shout out.
O-H-I-O. He's the son of Penelope Ann and Louis James Ferry. He grew up in Ferndale in the rural Humboldt County, California, which is where my mom grew up. My mom and my mom and my aunt both went to high school with Guy Fieri. And then later we're like, oh my god, Guy Fieri is Guy Fieri.
Aubrey, I don't know if this would make any sense to you. Your mom does kind of give if Guy Fieri was a woman. Do you know what I'm saying?
She's very gregarious.
Cheryl sort of, well, and like her hair, like Cheryl sort of has Lady Guy Fieri energy.
I mean, she is a blonde. My mother is, to physically describe my mother, she is...
a female Guy Fieri.
My mom looks a lot like a Barbie doll. My mom is very pretty and conventionally attractive and petite with huge fake titties. And she's a hairstylist.
Much like Guy Fieri. You're just describing a female Guy Fieri. That's all you're describing to the audience right now.
Yeah. So it makes sense. I don't think that they ever really directly interacted, but my aunt does remember Guy Fieri. She remembers him as this weird guy who would sell corn on the side of the road.
Hell yeah.
So
that's like how my mom went to college with Will Ferrell and they were in the same graduating year. So he's like in like very close to her name in their like graduate list. But my mom's like, I didn't know him.
Yeah. So during high school, he was a foreign exchange student in Chantilly, France, where he developed his interest in food and cooking. However, he had been interested in food from a young age because he would go around Ferndale with a bicycle cart at the age of 10, selling pretzels from his awesome pretzel bicycle cart.
That's cute.
It is cute.
That's cute as hell.
Yeah. So he'd sell his little pretzels, sell his corn, and then he went to France to study food. He then attended the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and graduated with a BS in hotel management in 1990. Soon after graduating from college, he worked as a manager of Parker's Lighthouse, a Stouffer's restaurant in Long Beach, California.
Stouffer's has restaurants?
Yes, much like Marie Callender's.
Oh, I don't think I knew either of those things to be true.
Yeah, I didn't know that for a long time either, and then I saw a Marie Callender's restaurant and was like, huh?
Huh.
Yeah. After 3 years in Southern California, he became the district manager of Louise's Trattoria, managing 6 locations, along with recruiting and training for those restaurants. So, to be clear, right, like, Guy Fieri has culinary chef experiences, but most of his early career is really restaurant management. In late 1996, Fieri and business partner Steve Gruber opened Johnny Garlic's, a, quote, California pasta grill in Santa Rosa, California. They opened a second location in 1999, a third in 2000, and a fourth in 2008. They also developed Tex Wasabi's, which is his restaurant, which is barbecue sushi fusion, in 2003. Sure. And a second location in 2007, which was then rebranded as Johnny Garlic's and then closed. So, you know, Guy Fieri, before he goes on Food Network star, he's got these restaurants, his name's attached to him. They're known for being funky, fusion-y, California-y type restaurants.
When does he start going by Guy Fieri instead of Guy Fieri?
I think that most of his life, like his professional life, he has gone by Guy Fieri. My understanding of that is that it's an homage to his grandfather, who changed his name when he immigrated to the United States.
I see.
Yeah, so his paternal grandfather was Giuseppe Fieri, who was an Italian American who anglicized his surname upon arrival to the United States. I think basically just his professional career, he's decided to go by Guy Fieri.
I see.
In April 23rd, 2006, he's awarded a 6-episode commitment for his cooking show on the Food Network. That's called Guy's Big Bite. So that was a show that he did where he showcased his cooking, and it went for 10 years. The last episode aired on November 16th, 2016.
Whoa, okay. I don't think I ever knew about that show.
No, exactly. So then his second series is Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, which premieres in April 2007. With him traveling.
I'm Guy Fieri, and I'm heading out to see all of America's greatest diners, drive-ins, and dives.
And so he...
No, it's rolling out. I'm rolling out to see all of America's greatest dives. Yeah. I'm so sorry for getting that wrong. Apologies to everyone.
Shot on sight by the Guy Fieri stands. Fake fan.
Not even, I would say, a fan. Just like a guy. I'm just like a guy. Me too. I feel neutral about Guy Fieri.
So Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives is the series where Guy Fieri travels around the country, visiting local eateries. The New York Times refers to the series as, quote, not a cooking show as much as a carefully engineered reality show. He co-hosts a show called Ultimate Recipe Showdown with Mark Summers in February of 2008, which airs for 3 seasons. You love Mark Summers?
I do.
You're gonna love a little fact I'm gonna tell you later about Mark Summers. So in September of 2008, Guy Off the Hook debuts on Food Network. That's a special studio audience show that airs through the end of 2008, but the cost of staging in an audience show didn't pan out and the concept was discontinued. In Thanksgiving 2008, he hosts a 1-hour special titled Guy's Family Feast for Thanksgiving. He used the Guys Off the Hook set for that special, which was broadcast live. He also appeared in other Food Network programs like Dinner Impossible, Paula's Party, Ace of Cakes, and Best Thing I Ever Ate. And in 2000...
I had the Ace of Cakes book.
I love that.
I loved Ace of Cakes. Listen, I'm not a Cake Boss guy. I'm all about Ace of Cakes.
I definitely prefer Ace of Cakes to Cake Boss.
It's the better of the brands.
Cake Boss, I don't like his attitude.
You don't like Carlo?
I don't.
You don't want to go to Carlo's Bakery next time you come visit me in New York?
No, I really don't. I have no desire. He has
Great, we can go to any better dessert place in New York.
He has like these cake vending machines in Vegas and everyone says that they're terrible.
Well, that's because it's just a fondant. It just like spits out fondant at you. It doesn't even spit out a cake.
In December 2009, NBC named Fieri as the host of game show Minute to Win It, which premiered in March 2010 and aired for 2 seasons. Fun fact, a Spanish teacher at Josh's high school was a contestant on Minute to Win It.
Well, thank God.
Thank God. In May of 2012, NBC announced that the game show would not be renewed for a 3rd season, citing high production cost and low ratings. High production cost, I'm gonna call cap on, because the whole premise of Minute to Win It was that it was like very basic tasks that anyone could do.
I wonder if the production cost was paying Guy.
I think that's probably what it was.
High production cost meaning Guy Fieri is asking us for too much fucking money.
Yeah. In 2012, Fieri was one of the 2 team captains alongside Rachel Ray on the Food Network reality series Rachel vs. Guy Celebrity Cook-Off, which I think was kind of like Worst Cooks in America, but with celebrities.
But they were good.
Yeah. Fieri's first New York City restaurant, Guy's American Kitchen and Bar, opened in 2012 to what has been described as a brutal New York Times review.
Who wrote it? Was it Pete Wells?
It was. I don't really know anything about him. Do you know anything about him?
Pete Wells was just like the New York Times food critic for years and years and years and years. And he just retired last year. He is, hated amongst New York restaurants because he is scathing.
Is he just like a career ender? Like if you get a bad review from him, you're done? Or
I don't know.
Okay. So
and I'm not going to look it up, so we'll never know. And audience, I don't care.
Mackenna, I'm sending you a Reddit post that has the text of Pete Wells'
we haven't read a Reddit
review.
post in a while.
I know. I'm going to let you decide. If you want to read it, we can popcorn back and forth with it, or you can just get into it and read it to your dramatic level.
Okay. Let me lock in.
Okay. Lock into this. I think that this is a time where you're going to showcase your acting ability, which is
a thing that I famously love doing and haven't quit entirely.
But you're so
Guy
good.
Fieri. I want you to know that I'm entering I'm doing Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I'm locking in. I'm Andrew Scott and Vanya. Hello, Mackenna from the future here. This review is extremely long, and also I'm a little afraid of the New York Times. So I've cut sections of it. I did read the entire thing, but I cut sections of it, and if you want to read the whole review, it's linked in the listening notes in the description of this episode. Please enjoy me doing my best. Guy Fieri, have you eaten at your new restaurant in Times Square? Have you pulled up one of the 500 seats at Guy's American Kitchen and Bar and ordered a meal? Did you eat the food? Did it live up to your expectations? Did panic grip your soul as you stared into the whirling hypno wheel of a menu where adjectives and nouns spin in a crazy vortex? When you saw the burger described as Guy's Pat LaFrida Custom Blend All Natural Creekstone Farm Black Angus Beef Patty, LTOP Lettuce, Tomato, Onion, and Pickle, SMC Super Melty Cheese, and slathering of donkey sauce on a garlic butter brioche, did your mind touch the void for a minute? Were the bourbon butter crunch chips missing from your Almond Joy cocktail too? Was your deep fried boulder of ice cream the standard size scoop? What exactly about a small salad with 4 or 5 miniature croutons makes Guy's famous Big Bite Caesar a big, famous, or Guy's in any meaningful sense? Were you struck by how very far from awesome the awesome pretzel chicken tenders are? If you hadn't come up with the recipe yourself, would you ever guess the shiny tissue of breading that exudes grease onto the plate contains either pretzels or smoked almonds? Why is one of the things on your menu that can be eaten without fear or regret a lunch-only sandwich of chopped soy glazed pork with coleslaw and cucumbers called a roasted pork banh mi when it resembles that item about as much as you resemble Emily Dickinson? That's cold as hell. When you have a second, Mr. Fieri, would you see what happened to the black bean and roasted squash soup we ordered? Hey! Did you try that blue drink? The one that glows like nuclear waste? The watermelon margarita? Any idea why it tasted like some combination of radiator fluid and formaldehyde? At your 5 Johnny Garlic's restaurants in California, if servers arrive with main courses and find that the appetizers haven't been cleared yet, do they try to find space for the new plates next to the dirty ones? Or does that just happen in Times Square, where people are used to crowding? What is going on at this new restaurant of yours, really? Has anyone ever told you that your high wattage passion for no-collar American food makes you television's answer to Calvin Trillin if Mr. Trillin bleached his hair, drove a Camaro, and drank boozy creamsicles? When you cruise around the country for your show, diners, drive-ins, and dives, rasping out slangy odes to the unfancy places where Americans like to get down and greasy, do you really mean it? That was classist, Pete. Yeah. Or is it all an act? Is that why the kind of cooking you celebrate on television is treated with so little respect at Guy's American Kitchen and Bar? How? For example, did Rhode Island's supremely unhealthy and awesomely good fried calamari, dressed with garlic butter and pickled hot peppers, end up in your restaurant as a plate of pale, unsalted squid rings next to a dish of sweet mayonnaise with a distant humor of spice? How did nachos, one of the hardest dishes in the American canon to mess up, turn out to be so deeply unlovable? When you hung up that sign by the entrance that says, "Welcome to Flavortown," were you just messing with our heads? Does this make it sound as if everything at Guy's American Kitchen and Bar is inedible? I didn't say that, did I? Tell me though, why does your kitchen sabotage even its more appealing main courses with ruinous sides and sauces? Why stifle a pretty good bison meatloaf in a sugary brown glaze with no undertow of acid or spice? Why isn't a serviceable herb roasted rotisserie chicken to the table in the company of your insipid rice-a-roni variant? Is this how you roll in Flavortown? Somewhere within the yawning 3-level interior of Guy's American Kitchen and Bar, is there a long refrigerated tunnel that servers have to pass through to make sure that the French fries, already limp and oil-sogged, are also served cold? What accounts for the vast difference between the donkey sauce recipe you've published and the donkey sauce in your restaurant? Why has the hearty rustic appeal of roasted garlic mayonnaise been replaced by something that tastes like Miracle Whip with minced raw garlic? And when we hear the words donkey sauce, which part of the donkey are we supposed to think about? Okay, so Pete Wills also thought of donkey parties. Is the entire restaurant a very expensive piece of conceptual art? Is the shapeless, structureless baked Alaska that droops and slumps and collapses while you eat it or don't eat it supposed to be a representation in sugar and eggs of the experience of going insane? Why did the toasted marshmallow taste like fish? Did you finish that blue drink? Oh, and we never got our Vegas fries. Would you mind telling the kitchen we don't need them? Thanks.
That is so savage.
It is the craziest review I've ever read. I do like the continuing line of like, I like the idea of Pete Wells reading this to Guy Fieri while he's like holding Guy Fieri at gunpoint until he finishes that blue watermelon margarita.
I love the way it's structured as just questions
God.
repeatedly until the very end. I think it is so well written.
Yes.
And if I did anything and someone wrote a review like that, I would have to kill myself.
Pete Wells is a good writer, if nothing else.
Yeah. Well, and I think it brings up such an interesting idea of like, your brand is built around showcasing good food in the American heartland, yet your own restaurants show such little respect for food that it just seems like a kind of insulting cash grab.
I got so sweaty during that I'm putting on deodorant.
I love that. Fieri's response to that was basically accusing Wells of using Fieri's fame as a platform for advancing his own prestige. Basically being like, you knew if you wrote a shitty review of me that it would make people read more of your stuff.
Okay, but also Anthony Bourdain called this place a 500-seat terror dome of food. So everyone thought it was bad. By everyone, I mean Pete Wells and Anthony Bourdain, so...
Yeah. So the restaurant's location in the highly trafficked Times Square enabled it to appear on Restaurant Business's list of top 100 independent restaurants as ranked by sales for 4 years in a row. It did close at the end of 2017. So we're gonna go back just slightly and I'm gonna go through a little bit more of Guy Fieri's business history. So, he's doing this show. It's very popular. He starts to expand his brand a little bit more. So in 2011, he partners with Carnival Cruise Lines to create Guy's Burger Joint to sell Fieri's burgers across the fleet. As of 2017, there were 19 restaurants on Carnival's cruise ships, including some that serve beer and barbecue, which are called Guy's Pig and Anchor Smokehouse Brewhouse. In 2014, Guy Fieri's Vegas Kitchen and Bar opens in Las Vegas. In 2015, Guy Fieri's Baltimore Kitchen and Bar opens in Baltimore's Horseshoe Casino. In 2018, he collaborates with Planet Hollywood founder Robert Earl to open fast food chicken sandwich shop Chicken Guy at Disney Springs and Walt Disney World. In 2021, he opens Guy Fieri's Flavortown Kitchen, which is a delivery-only restaurant. This is all to say that I wouldn't say that Guy Fieri is a successful restaurateur, nor would I say that he's particularly well respected by chefs outside of the Food Network. He is, however, absolutely beloved within it. What we see with Guy Fieri's sort of business history is a lot of restaurants where people go and are like, oh, this actually wasn't that good, but then they go home and continue to, watch him on TV review other people's food. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, there's something kind of funny about him, calling out Pete Wells like that for, using his name to, make a name for himself. But it's Guy, your entire thing is you go to other people's restaurants and you review them. You say nice things. You go to restaurants that you like and review them. But it's literally your entire thing is going to people's restaurants and talking about them. And so, you're the good version of a food critic in some ways, but you are still ultimately kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is that, Guy Fieri has never done a Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives episode on a restaurant he didn't like.
Well, that he said he didn't like.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to note that Guy Fieri is incredibly rich. His 2021 contract with the Food Network was a 3-year contract that was worth an estimated $80 million.
That's all I have to say. Sorry if you thought there was going to be more. That is just my genuine reaction to that number.
Yeah. So that obviously went from, I'd assume, 2021 to 2024. I couldn't find information on what his current contract is, but... yeah, I'd assume it's a bit more than that. So, I don't want to get too much into, the morality of Guy Fieri. That's for when we go on Pod Saves America, but...
Say the name of the podcast right.
What is it?
Pod Save America.
Pod Save America.
They're never,
Sorry, everyone.
the Johns are never going to let us on their podcast if you can't say it right.
You know what? They're gonna ask to be on our podcast.
Oh yeah, okay, sure.
Is what's gonna happen. Sure. They're gonna be banging on the door.
Uh-huh.
So Guy Fieri had a sister who was a lesbian, and she unfortunately passed away when her son was quite young. Guy Fieri adopted his nephew after that and basically raised his nephew with his sons, and he has been pretty outspoken in his advocacy for queer people. In 2012, at the South Beach Food and Wine Festival, he did a thing where he officiated 101 same-sex weddings.
Everyone say it with me. No freedom till we're equal. Damn right, I support it.
In a lot of ways, I think Guy Fieri fucks with Macklemore.
So, okay, if Pete Davidson is Macklemore's Waluigi, maybe Guy Fieri is his... Maybe Macklemore is the baby Bowser to Guy Fieri's Bowser.
Okay.
Do you like that?
I like that. I mean, I honestly was thinking of Guy Fieri as like a Mario himself.
Maybe Macklemore is Guy Fieri's Wario.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's like, okay, this is what it is. It's...
we're cooking!
If Guy Fieri is Mario.
Yeah.
Or Luigi. If Guy Fieri is Luigi. And Macklemore is Guy Fieri's Waluigi, then Pete Davidson is a double Waluigi because he is Macklemore's Waluigi, who is already a Waluigi. But no, you know what? I do think Macklemore, because he's the most woke, and we all know Luigi is woke, I think Luigi is Prime, and then it's Guy Fieri, and then it's Pete Davidson. And Pete Davidson is cowering in fear somewhere because I just compared him to Guy Fieri.
I like the idea of Guy Fieri and Pete Davidson being Wario and Waluigi.
Maybe the inside, I love that, and I think maybe the inside of the Venn diagram of Pete Davidson and Guy Fieri is Macklemore.
Okay. We're going to definitely make a graphic of this at some point.
No, we're not. You need to figure it out for yourselves. You need to listen. You need to take we're in school now. You need to hear my words. We're going to hear my words. And you, audience, need to use your brain. You need to go into your mind palace and you need to draw this for yourself. The homework is due at the end of the episode.
Yeah. And please tag us with your creations. Informed Attraction on Instagram. In 2015, Guy Fieri officiated the wedding of Chef Art Smith at Miami Beach. The wedding also included 101 same-sex couples, and it was held to celebrate Florida's Supreme Court lifting the state ban on same-sex marriage. So he's done several of these stunts where he officiates a bunch of gay weddings, and he does that as basically an homage to his sister who passed away.
And we all know Florida is famously super chill about gay people now.
Yeah. So that's where, like, again, I'm not trying to be like Guy Fieri is a woke king, but I think that he's done some stuff that I think is good. And I think it's nice to showcase when people do things that are good. That does not make them perfect or infallible or free of criticism. Except for me. In response to the COVID pandemic's effect on the restaurant industry in 2020, Fieri and the National Restaurant Association Educational Foundation teamed up to raise money for unemployed restaurant workers through the newly created Restaurant Employee Relief Fund. In less than 2 months, they raised $20 million for people who were unemployed because of the pandemic in the restaurant industry.
That's cool.
My fun fact to share with Mackenna is that Fieri is also currently producing the off-Broadway run of The Life and Slimes of Mark Summers, which stars Mark Summers in his one-man show.
That's so sick. Good for Mark Summers. Everyone's theater kid at heart.
Are you going to get tickets? Are you going to go and do a scathing review?
I don't...
Do a Pete Wells type review of The Life and Slimes of Mark Summers.
I would never do that. The greatest way that I could kill my career in theater is to become a theater critic.
I have no doubt that I would find it enjoyable. I love Mark Summers.
I love Mark Summers. Love You Unwrapped. I used to watch that as I went to bed.
I had a crush on Mark Summers as the Unwrapped host. Yes, he is hot. He's fatherly in a way that is sexual.
I'm not the person in this conversation with a PhD in developmental psychology, and thus I'm not the person who can unpack what you just said. I think maybe you, as the person with a PhD in developmental psychology, should go look in a mirror after this and just like have a little Mick Jagger on SNL conversation with yourself.
Nah, I graduated from therapy. That means I don't have mental illnesses no more.
Okay.
So that's really all I have to say about sort of the life and times of Guy Fieri. I think that in terms of his appearance stuff, right? Like, I think that he's an interesting character because he defies the expectations of like the sleek metropolitan aesthetic, becomes much more goofy, family friendly. There's this appeal to working class audiences, small town diners, and to just men in general. But I actually think his performance of masculinity is fairly benign, right? It's like being goofy, generous, a little bit cringe, but like self-aware that you're a little bit cringe and being okay with that, which I think is a somewhat positive male role model for people.
I think we could add to our Venn diagram our friend Bryce DeLulo somewhere in that, because you did just describe Bryce.
I did. And, you know, I think that he ushered in this new era of Food Network that's a little bit broader and has a new programming model that is around game shows, but also a little bit more diverse than historically the Food Network had been. And I don't want to say that this is solely like Guy Fieri making those calls. I'm definitely not trying to say that, but I do think that just his brand really does a lot of trying to showcase people from cultural backgrounds that are not his own and highlighting those individuals who are cooking those meals rather than like the white people appropriating them in fine dining context. And I think that that's something that reverberated throughout the Food Network through more of a focus on actual like people making foods of their cultural heritage.
Guy Fieri's commitment to such a specific aesthetic is also something that must be lauded, because he's been keeping this up for years and years and years. I am scrolling and I'm like, this man has just always looked like this and he will never not look like this. And it's such a specific look. It's like, okay, in pickup artist circles, they talk about like peacocking. And I think that like Guy Fieri's whole bit like is a little bit of peacocking because he's so specific looking that it sets him apart from sort of a normal looking white dude.
Well, and that's why I really liked his season of Food Network Star, because honestly, it really isn't even a competition, because that show is not about who is the best chef. It's specifically about who is the best host.
Yep.
And the challenges are set up not necessarily on cooking challenges, but rather on hosting challenges.
Do you like what I just sent you, Aubrey?
I don't. It's a version of Guy Fieri, which is what he would look like if he was, I guess, de-ossified.
Oh yeah, that's de-ossified Guy Fieri for sure. That's Gus Fieri, baby.
That's just Gus Fieri, and he just looks like, honestly, he looks a lot like guys I just see walking around Kentucky.
Correct. So that's the thing. It's like this whole Guy Fieri's appearance, I think, is like crucial to his success, because I don't think the man that we're looking at here on the right in his little plaid shirt and brown hair is as successful as our Frosted Tips king.
No, and that's part of the thing with Guy Fieri, right? Is that it's a costume. It's an aesthetic. It's something that makes him into a character that you can engage with. That's not, I don't know, it's separated from what you would imagine a professional chef to be.
Well, but I think it came out of this early 2000s, like, that's how you stand out era of like I think that like, not to like put Guy Fieri in the same neighborhood as like the pickup artist thing, but it's like there was this like, you gotta be interesting looking in this way to like break out, that like was a thing at the time. And I think that like he is a perfect example of that. And what's interesting about it is that like, you know, in the ways on this podcast, we want to talk about like what the TV teaches us. Like no one really has replicated his success with that on the Food Network. There's no one else who's doing it like him.
No.
And I also think that like he's created such a specific niche that like if someone did try to go with his vibe, it would come off as sort of disingenuous. The only thing I can think of that's sort of similar to Guy Fieri is, who was the Harvey on YouTube, Harvey Morning? What the hell was that called?
Yeah, and like that's part of my thing with, I don't think the Food Network understands who is going to be the next Guy Fieri. And I think that's the personality crisis of the Food Network right now. Because I try to watch the new shows that are coming out on the Food Network, because really it's trying to see who they're trying to make into the next star. I'm going to butcher his name. Do you know Eric? It's like Ijapong is his last name.
No.
He's a super handsome black guy. They keep putting him as a judge on shows and like really highlighting him. And now he's hosting a show called Wild Card Kitchen. And he's super hot. He's super likable. But I think he's who they're trying to position as like, oh, isn't this guy great? But it just doesn't sound like it's got that fan appeal that Guy Fieri does. And I think that that's part of the struggle of the network, is like they're trying to find their next guy, but he's a one-of-a-kind guy.
Oh my God, Aubrey, I need you to help me with this. Okay, this is the YouTube channel. The guy who hosts, his name is Harvey, and it was like they were known for like the big food eating challenges, and he was a substitute teacher from Canada.
Oh I have no idea who you're talking about.
No, you do. Oh my God, Harvey. Oh my God, okay. I think the only equivalent to a Guy Fieri type who has like made a success, and it's on YouTube, is Harley Morenstein from Epic Mealtime. Like, I think Epic Mealtime on YouTube is like the closest thing. Obviously, it's a very different thing. Like what Epic Mealtime does and what Guy Fieri does is very different. But like Harley of Epic Mealtime's whole thing is this like big, gregarious, very like specific guy. Harley always had like a huge beard when they were making the videos. For those who don't know, Epic Mealtime was a show on YouTube. I think it might still be going, but I haven't watched it in a long time. But it was a YouTube cooking show known for making extremely high calorie meals, generally out of meat products. When you think about like the YouTube era where like bacon was super important, Epic Mealtime was a huge part of that. And it also often really include alcohol. And yeah, so like to the point that like there was a spinoff of Epic Mealtime that was a Chopped spoof, that it was like two chefs would battle with like a bunch of secret ingredients to make food. And so I think that like Epic Mealtime harnessed this Guy Fieri brand of thing on YouTube in a way that like is the only thing close to Guy Fieri that I can even conjure in my mind.
Yeah, and I don't know.
Were you not an Epic Mealtime guy, Aubrey? You didn't know about Epic Mealtime?
I'm like not a YouTube person. I watched like 3 YouTubers ever.
We got called too online yesterday, and now Aubrey is admitting that she didn't watch YouTube, didn't participate in my culture.
No, that's saying you are like raised by the internet in the sense that you are very aware of YouTube culture. I was just aware of, you know, like the femcells, like that was like the femcells, the like people, the Tumblr girls were my era, the pro Annas.
You okay?
Yeah, that was my internet.
Okay?
4chan. Yeah, and I'm not. That's hence why I had to graduate from therapy. But I'm better now because I did that.
Okay, go talk to yourself in the mirror after this.
You know, don't tell me what to do.
Okay.
Any other thoughts about sort of, I don't know, Food Network, media, attractiveness, masculinity, women? We didn't talk about women at all on this episode.
Aubrey, I in fact have so many thoughts about all those things that we have a whole podcast about that, about those topics. No, I think that I was thinking about last time after we got off, thinking about like the women of the Food Network. It's one of the only places in traditional media where being approachable as a woman is actually more useful than being attractive.
Yeah.
And obviously, like we talked about last time, like all of the women on the Food Network are still very beautiful, but like, you know, you take someone who's also like Paula Deen, very specific looking woman, but like was approachable, and I think like could only find television success in this way. And like Rachel Ray is very pretty, but she is more than being very pretty, she is extremely approachable. Mm-hmm. Because ultimately, like you made this point last time, but it's the audience, the primarily female audience, doesn't want to feel like they're competing with the person who's teaching them to cook. They want to relate to the person who's teaching them to cook. So having these like the thing with like really hot people is there's a level at which it ceases to be aspirational. I cannot aspire to look like Anya Taylor-Joy. Like she is alien hot.
That was literally who I thought of.
Really?
When you were like, I was like, she's gonna say Anya Taylor-Joy. But
it's like that is beyond my fathoms. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like someone on Food Network, on like a Food Network woman should be someone who feels like the better, more polished version of me who cooks. And like, that's what the Food Network is for someone who I can like aspire to in a way that is like attainable for me if I just had Ina Garten's big, beautiful Hamptons kitchen, you know?
Yeah.
And that wasn't as important for men on the Food Network because there weren't as many like men they didn't have as much of a male audience before Guy Fieri, but I think about like we talked about Bobby Flay's like grilling show, and it's like Bobby Flay is a good looking guy, but again, like Bobby Flay grilling in his backyard is attainable for the majority of American men.
Yeah.
And Guy Fieri sort of breaks that mold in that like what Guy Fieri has isn't attainable. I mean, it is. We've seen lots of bachelorette parties where they dress up like Guy Fieri, but like, it's not about, you're not trying to attain Guy Fieri. He's doing something diametrically opposed to what everyone else on the Food Network is doing because you're not aspiring to be him or be like him. You are being entertained by him, which is a completely different thing than I think what a lot of the content on the Food Network is getting at.
Right. Well, and I think that's why the Food Network is having this personality crisis right now, because they're trying to prop up individuals on the Food Network who are like approachable, who are experts in their field. Like I'm thinking like Molly Ye, and
Molly Ye was the person who, when I posted on my Instagram asking about like who do you think the hottest person on the Food Network is, Molly Ye was the person who was said the most.
Yeah.
And I think she checks that box for women our age.
Yeah.
The way that Ina Garten did for women in our mother's generation. Mm-hmm. And I also think Molly Ye is like very, very like girl next door beautiful in a way that like a lot of my male friends have told me that like Molly Ye is their celebrity crush.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that is somebody who I think can have a successful following, but in a way that is dissimilar to Guy Fieri, who is a character. And we talked a little bit off of the show about Anne Burrell, where I think Anne Burrell is sort of that feminine equivalent where she's doing the I'm like a goofy kind of character aesthetic. Yeah. Unfortunately, I think for women, it doesn't resonate with people because the expectation is that women should be, well, yeah, I mean, literally, the expectation is that women should be approachable or hot, or both, ideally both. And when
they should
a woman is
not be funny, that's disgusting.
No, they shouldn't be funny. They shouldn't be silly. And if they are, then it means you have to make them not attractive.
It's true. That's how those are the rules. Anne Burrell. So she was married to a woman and now she's married to a man.
Yeah, she did the thing that bisexual women think is impossible, where normally when we think of like woman is married to one gender and then marries another gender, we always think woman married to man, then realizes she's a lesbian and marries a woman. Anne Burrell did the opposite version of that because she was married to a woman for many years and then they got divorced.
They were not
and
married.
She married a man.
They were never married.
Apologies. She had they
were together for a long time.
Yes, she was partners with a woman for a very long time and then they parted ways and she married a man.
Oh my God. Anne Burrell's ex-girlfriend is hot.
Yeah, I know.
Corin Grieveson is hot.
No, that's why, like, off the show, Mackenna was like, oh, Anne Burrell gives me conservative woman with short hair. And I was like, no. Anne Burrell is with it.
Sorry, I'm really distracted looking at Anne Burrell's ex-girlfriend. What's interesting about Anne Burrell is I like think that like there is this other category of woman in people's minds, which are lesbians. And I think that Anne Burrell was sort of existing in that niche for a long time. And I do think it fucks with people when you're someone who has lesbian coded themselves. And then are like, actually, I date dudes. And it's like, whoa, we don't do that here. We don't do that here. You're gay. I put you in a different box in my head. Like, Anne Burrell was allowed to, like, Guy Fieri herself because she was a lesbian, which is basically a man, as we all know.
Just like Pink.
have a question or a topic that you would like for us to discuss, send us an email at informedattraction@gmail.com.